Hello listeners, we've partnered with ClassicFootballShirts.com where you can get your classic, rare, retro, vintage football shirts for your football team of your choice. I recommend a Parma kit. You know, there's some lovely options on the website. There's a referral link on our Twitter or in the description of the YouTube video. Click there, follow it through and enjoy. I say Parma, get it on you, it looks lovely. Look from the 90s. Ooh. Listeners, good afternoon, good evening, good morning. It's For The Fans show, episode... we don't number these, do we? I don't know why I do that.
I think it's 14th show of the season.
Is it? 14th show of the season?
That might be wrong. If it is, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sure that's wrong. I'm sure we've got more than that.
Well, 14 weeks is probably about right. It's been about 14 games in the Premier League. So, logically, you're probably right there, Jack.
Thank you.
Not a problem. Today...
we don't have a feature, but Jack was still... beating me.
Yeah, still beating you in the knowledge stakes. There's no feature today, but that's because we're going to cover the Champions League and the Premier League, slightly later show in terms of upload this week. And we were waiting for the Champions League to come to its climax, to come to its end. And the Premier League teams have done it's mixed. Is that fair to say?
Not as bad as I feared, actually. I feel like when Leicester go in there, you're always a little bit worried that they're going to be like torn to shreds, and then all it takes is one more team to kind of slip up, and suddenly only two teams are going through, and we have like Europa League dominance. But
indeed, well what we're going to do?
We never have Europa League dominance though, Jack.
Europa League dominance.
So
last year we did.
Well, Sevilla aren't in it this year, are they? They've done the foolish thing of qualifying, which,
Spurs could win it then.
Risky.
Spurs could win it.
We'll talk about Spurs later on. We're going into chronological order, so we'll start with Group A in the Champions League. We'll go through all the groups and then focus more on the Premier League teams in each group. So Group A has finished off Arsenal, Paris Saint-Germain, Ludogorets and FC Basel. Arsenal topping the group in the Champions League, boys. What do we make of it, Callum?
Undefeated as well. Yeah, Arsenal have had a really good week. We'll get on to what they did at the weekend later, but a lot of goals. And this performance last night, or 2 nights ago, was exactly how they'd have wanted to finish it. They've been pretty good, and they did get a little bit fortunate to top the group, I think, with... I think people considered the PSG draw at the Emirates was a fairly disappointing result, and that put PSG in pole position to qualify top on the head-to-head record. But Ludogorets did them a favour, and so they'll be pretty pleased with that. The thing is, for Arsenal, I think, in this situation, finishing top of the group may not actually be helpful for once, because, as we'll talk about in a little bit, there are some dangerous teams who finish second place in other groups who will be potential... obviously, the draw's not been made, but they're potential opponents for Arsenal in the next round. So they're not out the woods yet, although it was a big improvement on earlier seasons.
I think I think too much has been made of this first place, second place. Every year there are teams in second position that aren't like that's still pretty good. Very rarely do you have sort of the second place teams being sort of Basel, Besiktas, etc. Like I remember in loads of previous years, there's been groups with sort of City, Dortmund, Real Madrid. So there was always going to be like a good second place side in those sort of groups. So I think
it's a bit of a fallacy, the whole bet position. Ultimately, if you want to win the entire thing, you're going to have to beat teams who finish top and second in the group stages.
Yes, Jack. You're very correct.
That was very match of the day of you, Jack.
Very much of the day.
I mean, it's just I hate to state the obvious, but I feel like people just don't consider that. People go, you finished top, easier draw. Yeah. Never like that.
But you've got to think what the expectation is for Arsenal, though. I think people are basing it on sort of Arsenal want to get through this part of the group stage, then beat the first round of the qualified because they fail to do so often, and then they get to the quarterfinal, semi-final. That's kind of the expectation.
It's about pressure as well, and you've got to think I mean, I agree with you, Jack, but as we saw with, say, Man City in the group stage, they did really well to get a great win against Barcelona at home. The way that game was played would be under entirely different sort of pressures and atmosphere as to how maybe a semi-final would have been played against Barcelona. So I agree, you have to beat everyone, and the best team tends to win it, other than, a few exceptions, Chelsea maybe 2012. But from Arsenal's point of view, as Ben said, to get past, maybe if they can get a decent draw in the round of 16, and get past that hurdle that has been quite problematic for them in the last few years, I think it will take a bit of pressure off, and they may play with a little bit less fear than they may do if they get unlucky and get Bayern Munich again, which they probably will do. But,
But as we've kind of touched on, the second place teams this year are relatively tough. You've got Sevilla, one of them, Porto, Real Madrid, Leverkusen, Bayern Munich, of course. Can they face City? Can you face an English team this early?
I don't think so. I always hate cup draws where they draw names out the hat and it's like, oh, you can't play those, we'll put them in the next draw. Do you know the ones I'm on about? That annoys me. It's like, if your name comes out, you should play against them.
And Benfica is Jack's just trying to make his own draw
very
there.
Very old-fashioned from Jack.
Yeah, Jack's not happy with these sort of complicated.
Do you know what I mean? It's always like the
modern
World Cup
football,
draw,
Jack's
where they draw
rubbish,
their names out. It's like, we can't have 2 European teams, right? So they get moved across one. And then you end up with like the last group, like Group F, getting filled up before Group A.
I never knew you had such a hatred for sort of complex draws, Jack. This is.
I mean, I quite enjoy the World Cup qualifying draw. That's one of my most excited ones.
Did you enjoy Chris Sutton on Match of the Day on the weekend?
I mean, it was an intriguing one, wasn't it? I felt
it's never intriguing. Chris Sutton's not an intriguing man.
He wouldn't be my first choice, man to bring out.
Well,
and there were a few people like great debut by Chris Sutton. I'm like, it actually wasn't as bad as I was expecting, but he's not quite up there with like Genius, who I actually quite like. Well,
speaking of draws, Jack, did you see the FA Cup third round? Gerrard and Ian Wright were doing that.
I did. It was I don't know. The FA Cup draw, it's always a bit underwhelming, isn't it? When you get
third round's good. Third round's good.
When you get a team like, what I was going to say was, when you get a team like Lincoln City and you're thinking, non-league, can they get like a big team? Ipswich away! It's just a bit like,
Yeah.
Steven Gerrard's quite dull. Oh, well, we've got Spurs.
Yes.
So we're out.
Are you going
we're
to
already
that?
out.
Going to go and venture down?
Maybe.
My tie of the FA Cup is Sutton v AFC Wimbledon. Because people might not know this, but those two teams, Sutton, were the first team that Wimbledon ever played when they were founded in a game. And also, the Wimbledon women's actually play on Sutton's stadium.
And you were worried, folks, there wouldn't be a quiz-like feature aspect of today's show. Well, luckily, Jack's Trivia Hour is in full flow.
Well, FA Cup isn't in the schedule, but there you go.
No, so
it's happened now.
Arsenal top the group, as Skinner said, unbeaten, 14 points.
Disappointing for PSG, I think, to draw at home to Ludogorets.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a great result for them because they get Europa League, but quite.
I dare say PSG not the force they were last season with the season without Zlatan. And
I think it's a transitional season for them with Unai Emery. As you say, they've lost a few of their sort of the initial kind of round of those players that they brought with the money. They're starting to move on, and I think it's his job to really sort of transition, put the emphasis on players like Lucas Moura and stuff.
Di Maria's been getting some criticism, hasn't he? In this sort of last week or so.
Chairman's come out for PSG and been like, it's not good enough.
Yeah, which is right. He's not been playing.
Cavani's been a bit hit and miss as well, from what I've seen.
Cavani is a bit hit and miss. That's the problem.
I think that is Cavani, isn't it?
Yeah. Group B, we won't focus on it too much, but Napoli top the group, Benfica second, Besiktas.
Napoli, I should say, Napoli, I think a bit of a dark horse for me to go, maybe to get out of this round and to trouble a team in the quarterfinals.
I think them versus City would be a lovely little game.
It would be. And while Juventus have been dominating in Italy, Napoli are a dangerous team. Dark horse for me.
Yeah. Benfica qualify in second. Besiktas go into the Europa League, and Dynamo Kiev are out.
I feel bad for Kiev because they've won 6-0 against Besiktas, who finished third. Like, if there was any justice in the world, like, they should get that third place spot.
Although I will say, Besiktas got a -5 goal difference. I
don't know if you saw the penalty decision in the Besiktas Kiev game. It's one of the worst decisions I've ever seen.
Yeah.
The attacker runs into the back of the defender, falls over, like it's a foul on the defender. Ref gives a penalty and sends off the defender in the first half.
The Dele Alli. Lovely, yes. The Dele Alli. No, it's quite funny looking at that group that Kiev finished bottom with a +2 goal difference, better than Benfica and Besiktas, who are both finished above them. Quite a tight group, actually, that one. No team went unbeaten.
Obviously, Europa League's been played tonight. There's one group in the Europa League where I think there's one team on 7 points and then 3 teams on 6 points.
Yeah. I
I
saw
like
this
groups
somewhere.
like that.
Let's go on to Group C then. Barcelona topped the group. One defeat to their name, which was obviously the City result, but 20 goals scored is not bad in 6 games for Barcelona. A +16 goal difference as well. Not too shabby at all. 15 points for them. City in second place with 9 points. Borussia Mönchengladbach go into the Europa League, and Celtic with 3 draws and 3 points, which I guess isn't that terrible in a group like this.
Another point at City on Tuesday night.
Yeah.
I thought it was. It was kind of a bit of a dead rubber because both teams had their fates decided already.
It was settled, wasn't it?
In the group.
I enjoyed the fact
City made a
Patrick
lot of
Roberts
changes.
scored, though, on loan from City.
It was a decent goal as well. It's a pretty good goal.
Do we think that City will be quite... I mean, this is Pep, obviously, and he won't be happy with sort of 2 wins, 3 draws, and a point.
Yeah, this is
and a loss. Sorry, but is this the sort of thing that he'll look at and go, "We're through to the knockouts, where anything can happen"?
A little bit, but at the same time, I'd be incredibly worried by the fact you've conceded 10 goals in 6 games. Granted, 4 of them came against Barcelona in the game where they just didn't care. On the flip side, they conceded 3 against Celtic in a 3-3 draw, and they only kept 1 clean sheet in the opening game of the group stage. And I feel like going into...
It's the story of City's season, though, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, going into knockout football, however, I feel like, especially in the first game, if you are the team at home, it's so important to try and keep a clean sheet as much as it is to try and win, because the away goals do play kind of quite a big bearing on the game. And I don't know, I feel like, yes, this group's probably played out how you would expect it to when you look at all the teams pre-tournament. And as we said, that last game really didn't mean a lot. But I feel like for City, there's still a lot for them to prove, particularly the game against Celtic last night. They just didn't, they just didn't look very sharp, and they had opportunities. They had a goal disallowed for offside they had a few chances here and there, but there was just no killer instinct about them. And I feel like when you're playing Celtic in this kind of game, you've got to be looking to try and annihilate them, even if there's nothing on the line of such. You want to, go out with a bang and really give a good account of yourself to, perhaps intimidate a few of the teams and whatever team you're going to end up getting drawn against going into that knockout stage.
Well, he made a lot of changes, to be fair, and I thought, you say killer instinct. One man who does have that for sure is Kelechi Iheanacho, who got the goal. He's got an incredible goals per minutes record for City. I think it's like a goal or an assist every 58 minutes of football or something.
My proudest achievement with him is I had him in Football Manager 2 years ago. So whenever he scores, I get this weird sense of pride, like I've helped his development. It's not happened.
I'm going to crush the dream, Jack. Yeah, he had nothing to do with it, but we respect
I like to believe I did. People wouldn't know how to incorrectly pronounce his name if it wasn't for me.
Yeah, no. I was going to make a couple of points on City, though. You made a very good point that I think in the knockout phase of the Champions League in particular,
can you hear a dog outside?
No.
Okay, now I sound mental, but there's a very loud dog outside.
I had a little woof there.
I just did.
Yeah.
I don't go and wrestle it, Ben.
For the fans, we've added dog.
Added dog.
With more bark.
Featuring,
more insightful than Proudy. It's incredible, isn't it, really? Sorry to put in there.
He's actually the podcast #1 fan. He's just unhappy about the lack of a feature the last 2 weeks. He's staging a protest.
I hope he's not trying to get in. He sounded very angry. Sorry, can you talk about City there?
Well, yeah, I think their inability to keep clean sheets in the knockout stage as we go into sort of 2017 will hinder them. And I think if you look at the group, Barcelona have finished clearly ahead, but that wasn't due to City sort of them beating City twice and the rest of those two teams picking up the rest of the points. I think City, they've shown that they could beat them, and they played really well in the game that they won 3-1. But I think, obviously, they drop points elsewhere. So I think with that in mind, you could feel a little bit hard done by, or not hard done by, but I think disappointed with how they played in some of the other games, like this game in particular, and the other draw against Celtic, for sure, where they were ahead twice and were pegged back every time they went ahead. That could definitely be one that they look back and think, if the gap had been tighter going into this final game, maybe, it could have been a little bit different. But as we said, first and second this year may not matter. Yeah. So they're through, and that's what matters.
In summary, I'd say about this group in general is Barcelona played it like a team that have been here lots and lots of times before.
Yeah, sure.
And City continue to play group stages like they're a little bit new to it, which when you look at their squad seems bizarre, and especially when you look at their manager as well, you think, blimey, this is the sort of thing you expect them to take the bull by the horns as such. But
I think you make the point about Pep. That is quite an interesting. I think City, moving into the next rounds, are probably the most interesting team in terms of sort of like a long-term.
Would you want them if you finish first?
Well,
if you topped a group, would you want Manchester City under Pep Guardiola?
It's difficult to say because Guardiola in recent years, in the last 3 or 4 years, particularly when it's been at Bayern, hasn't had a great relationship with the Champions League. They've gone out, and even the last year, I think, at Barcelona when they were taken apart by Bayern Munich under Heinkes, I think in 2012. But he's not. Obviously, consistently getting to the quarters and semis of the Champions League is great. But I think for a manager of his calibre and his pedigree...
his pedigree?
Yeah.
Sorry. No,
that was a good one.
I became Jack there for a second. I don't know what to do.
I thought you were going to make a dog pun on pedigree. But Yeah, for a manager of Pep's standard, I think he'd be expecting to win it a lot of the times, and he hasn't been able to do that in recent years. I'm not sure. I don't think he'll do it this year with City. So, as you say, they've played the group stage in a quite naive way. So, for a team like an Atletico Madrid, that City would be a very, very good draw, I think, for them.
Yeah, I think there's some teams that finish top that would very much enjoy City. I think Dortmund would quite like it. I feel like Madrid would quite like it. But then there's teams sort of like Monaco, Napoli, probably one of these as well, that are looking at thinking, we'd quite like to avoid that if possible.
You can imagine Madrid, Atletico going into a tie like that, very, very tight at the back at home, nick a goal away from home, City can't keep clean sheets, and it'd be quite an easy one to walk through, I think.
Yeah. Let's talk then about Atletico Madrid, who, this is like the sums up what we're talking about, really. Atletico...
Best form in the competition.
Pardon, sorry? What did you say then?
Best form in the competition up until this final game where they lost to Bayern. They were unbeaten.
Yeah, they'd won every game.
Playing for fun.
What's fascinating though, for me about Atletico Madrid generally and why they're so successful in these European competitions is that they've won the group. They've played 6 matches and scored 7 goals, which is 15 points. I mean, I'll say that again in case you missed it. 5 wins, 6 games, 7 goals scored, which is ridiculous in many ways. They won every game by a 1-goal margin. They won 1-0, 1-0, 1-0. Then it was a 2-1 and then a 2-0 against PSV.
They've got the joint best defensive record in the competition with Juventus. And if you can tell with the next team, I'll give you brownie points because this is mad. FC Copenhagen only conceded 2 goals, finished 3rd in their group.
Wow.
Madness.
Is that Leicester's group then? We'll come on to that.
That is Leicester's group, so we will talk about that. But yeah, like as you said, very good form in this. Obviously, Bayern going to be kicking themselves about the fact they screwed up against Rostov in the kind of penultimate games of this group stage. That 3-2 defeat now coming back to bite them a little bit.
Yeah.
Because this game, in which they won and Lewandowski scored, it was a pretty decent goal after about 25 minutes or so. This game would have been almost the group final. And because of the how they messed up at Rostov, was it away from home or was it away? In Rostov?
I believe it was away. Yeah,
I think it was, and so obviously because of that sort of scuppered their group a little bit. So Atletico didn't really. I mean, they lost 1-0. They only conceded 1 goal. So it's kept their goal difference at a record on pretty good check. But this was another one that didn't mean too much.
I think by and large, Group D has gone down as expected, though. Atletico Madrid and Bayern both going through. I think everyone would have sort of seen it going very similar to how it has done. Rostov go into the Europa League, though, which I think is quite nice. PSV will be gutted, I imagine. Didn't win a game in the group. Only 2 draws to their name.
Rostov, I think now an expert on Russian football may correct me in the comments. Rostov are quite an interesting case because they, we've had a few teams in the last few years like Angie who have sort of had billionaire owners.
Not anymore.
And sort of, but brightly kind of burned for a year and then pulled out and they've disappeared again. Rostov, I think, has a very, very, very rich owner. But he has sort of taken a bit of a different approach in the sense that I think he's from the town. It's not that big a town, not that big a footballing city. And he's building a new stadium and they're developing the academy. And is sort of going more like the Man City kind of route of sustainable growth. So they could be a club sort of going forward that may be sort of turn into like the CSKA, the sort of Russian perennial team in the Champions League. It'd be quite an interesting.
Yeah, it's very big for them because this is their first ever time in the competition.
Yeah, exactly.
They finished second in the Russian domestic league last year, but before that they finished 14th. So it really was an outlier season for them.
But he's taken. I forget his name. The guy who owns the club has taken over and sort of they're going places. So
the owner's called beautifully. The owner is called. Well, actually, no, I don't know if that can't be a real person's name. That's unbelievable.
It's Rostov Oblast, isn't it?
No, because that's a place, though.
I feel like that's his actual name too.
that's a place, Jack. You've been done by Wikipedia there.
Listeners.
I've fallen into the Dr. Benji trap. Have you edited that prior to the show?
I'd love to say, Jack, I'd love to be honest here and say I did. But the interesting thing about Rostov is that they've got a very sort of, most Russian teams, in my experience, have got quite a Russian core and are almost Russian throughout. Whereas this side have got quite an interesting group of players, a few Romanians in there as well. They've got I think Slovakia or Slovenia. They've got a few players. They've even got a Spanish chap there. Ecuador. It's odd. They've got Hungary. Have got a few as well. They've got an interesting squad. And not only that, a lot of the squad won't be familiar to anybody. I'm looking at it here. I don't recognise I'm not sure I recognise any of their names. I mean, I don't know. It's a sort of squad that in a few years,
it's like Leicester.
There might be sort of 10 or so players that you think, oh yeah, he's pretty good and he's decent. But as of now, I'm not familiar with nearly any of them.
Danny Drinkwater.
Danny Drinkwater. That's a funny name. He drinks water. The PSV then finished bottom of the group and are out of the Champions League. We'll move into Group E, which is Tottenham's group, and this is arguably one of the most confusing groups of all time.
This is a really, really like close group. I feel like when the groups got drawn out, you'd say this is the group which doesn't really have kind of one big standout team, a team that frequently reaches the semi-final. But it's kind of all teams who really, I imagine, were expecting to finish in the top two in whatever group they got put in.
Yeah, very similar. I mean, I think we're mainly talking about the top three, but a very similar set of teams, as you point out. Monaco topped the group then with 11 points, by Leverkusen with 10, and then Tottenham with 7. CSK Moscow are out. Now, so Monaco have gone through with Bayer Leverkusen, and the real talking point now, I think, is Tottenham. Leverkusen have gone through the whole group unbeaten, whereas Spurs have lost 3 games in this group, and I've been punished, in my opinion, for not taking it as seriously as they perhaps should do.
I saw a really bizarre thing, which was Rio Ferdinand pitting the fact that they've got out here on the fact they're not playing at White Hart Lane. I feel like home advantage is a thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't feel like you can use that as any kind of excuse whatsoever and go, if only we were playing at home. You knew you were going to be playing at Wembley in this tournament. Yeah. You've got more fans than ever of your own team. Yes, the first game may be daunting, but from then onwards, you've got a job to do. You've got to settle in and perform well.
I think
it's just been all very subpar, hasn't it?
In the case of Spurs, I think it is a factor that the pitch size at Wembley is a lot bigger and it doesn't lend itself to Spurs' sort of high-tempo pressing as well. I don't think they'd be able to get in teams like Leverkusen's face as well as they could do at White Hart Lane. But I agree, it's not the defining reason that Tottenham haven't qualified. I just don't think they've been good at it. I think at the Monaco game away was one in particular where they looked pretty good for the first sort of 40 minutes or so. And I don't know, they didn't just seem to have, and I think it sort of parallels their Premier League so far this year in the sense that they've looked like the team of the last couple of years predominantly and didn't quite have enough to sort of get over the line as they're having the problems they're having this season. I think with that in mind, Pochettino said that he wants to sort of target the Europa League. And sort of this win at Wembley may help sort of get rid of that hoodoo and actually allow them to progress in that competition because it could be Spurs' best chance of getting back.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, given how they're performing in the league right now, top 4 seems like it's going to be a very tall order for them.
Yeah, and they certainly have the players to win it. I mean, I know the game last night didn't mean much. Dele Alli scored a wonderful goal, their first goal where he brought it down and sort of had a lovely finessed finish on the half volley. Past Akinfeev, who hasn't kept a clean sheet in the Champions League for 2006. Since 2006.
I think it's about 3,000 games he's got now without keeping a clean sheet. It's pretty terrible.
He did have a great Euro. Was it Euros or the World Cup where he
both?
Where he made a bad mistake?
Well, he's not been in very good teams, to be fair.
No, Russia haven't been as good.
He set a clean sheet record in the Russian league. We're talking a lot about Russia today. He set a clean sheet record in the Russian league, and then
people have been saying phrases. You never talk about Russia. Well, you are.
If we're going to talk about Russia, can we talk about the fact that FIFA 17 might be getting banned in Russia?
Why?
Have you heard about this?
Why is it getting banned?
So, because of part of the Rainbow Laces campaign, FIFA added in the rainbow-coloured kit.
Yes.
There is basically laws and rules, I guess you could call them, in Russia, which basically prohibit the kind of promotion of gay propaganda, as they call it.
I think Russia could be renamed that, Jack. Laws and rules.
They've gone to EA Sports and told them either you remove the rainbow kit from all Russian copies of the game and patch it out, or we have to give the game an 18 and a mature age rating, which are kind of like the idea of FIFA being an 18 in Russia 18. Because of a rainbow-coloured kit.
What I like is I can only imagine some of the games that aren't rated 18 in Russia that probably should be, and they've gone, well, this game where they're kicking the balls around, it's a little bit extreme for us because of that rainbow-coloured kit. So slap an 18 on it.
That got banned from Russia as well because Tinky Winky was seen as promoting homosexuality as well.
Well, I don't know, Jack.
A tangent.
I dare say, Jack, I don't know. So
I don't know. It was quite a big news story at the
time.
But that's what's been going on in Russia. We've covered now like a yearly dose of Russia.
Yeah, I think a yearly dose of fresh air is just about enough.
Akin 5, lack of clean sheets, and FIFA getting banned.
Yeah, lovely. The Russia story. What frustrates me about Spurs is that, you said that, they've got the ability to win the Europa League. And in my opinion, if a team's got the ability to win the Europa League, then they've got the ability to qualify from their group. And you spend all year last season, admittedly they were pushing for a title, but at the start of the season, finishing the top 4 would have been the priority. When you do that and then show, in my opinion, a lack of real want to be in the Champions League, that is very frustrating, not only for the supporters, but for some of those players that have sort of worked their asses off last year to get there. And now you're in the Europa League, which, let's face it, isn't the most glamorous of competitions. And now everyone's going, oh yeah, well, Spurs can win that. Well, based on what we've seen before and the way in which they sort of went out to Dortmund last year, they're not going to be that asked about this either. And Pochettino clearly focuses on the league and wants success in the league. Now, that's great if you have that success in the league. But as Jack's pointed out before, there's no guarantee this year they'll get in the top 4. So Pochettino now has to make a decision of, I'm going to take European football seriously in the Europa League. Because last year, let's face it, he was playing the kids a lot of the time. Is he now going to think, we're going to push for this, and this is our route into the Champions League, much like Liverpool did last season, and sort of just throw away the league? Liverpool did that last year. Liverpool went, forget the league, we'll go for the Europa League. That will become our primary source of sort of Champions League potential. Now, it didn't work out for them because it's very difficult to make that happen. And Spurs aren't going into the Europa League.
Sevilla
aren't there, Ben?
Well, no, but a team like Manchester United are. And
true.
And there's some decent sides in the Europa League this year that I think that Spurs would be foolish to think that this is an easier route into the Champions League than the 4 places available in the Premier League. So Pochettino's now got to make a judgment. Does he think it's easier to qualify in the top 4 or win a competition, a knockout competition? Confusing the whole situation.
Forward.
Indeed.
Sure.
Let's fire through a few more of these groups then. A lot of these were sort of not wrapped up beforehand, but we're almost done. If you move over to Group F, which is Dortmund, Real Madrid, Legia Warsaw, and Sporting Lisbon, this is the best stat from this group is that in 6 games, Legia Warsaw conceded 24 goals and didn't finish bottom, and did not finish bottom of the group as well.
It's the first time since 1996 a Polish team has reached the knockout stages of the Europa League.
Yeah, they can. I mean, for those that are thinking, how did this happen? Dortmund were the reason this happened. Dortmund scored 14 against them. Of course, they're involved in the 8-4 game. So they scored 8 against them in that game, 6 against them in the other, a 2-0 defeat to Sporting Lisbon, a 5-1 defeat to Real Madrid, and then actually hilariously they beat Sporting Lisbon 1-0 in the final game of the groups, which is a bit strange.
The draw they had against Real Madrid was one of my favourite games of the season.
That was a 3-3 as well. 3-3.
That was a good game. If you haven't seen that, look for the highlights. There's some great goals in it.
This game as well between Dortmund and Real Madrid was excellent, and I think they're arguably 2 at the top in terms of form, the best 2 teams in Europe at the moment. And I think going forward in the competition, obviously both of them are qualified. I think we'll be seeing them in the very latter stages of the competition in whatever sort of way that may be. It was a really good game. I'm not sure, was there a lot on the line, I think?
Yeah, there was.
But this was one of the ones that I've got them mixed up across all the groups. Yeah, this was one where, Dortmund needed a point to secure top spot in the group. And after about an hour, it looks as though that wasn't going to happen. Benzema had made 2 sort of classic Benzema poacher finishes. Really good ball from Dani Carvajal, I think, for the first goal. And Dortmund had chances, and you sort of thought at the Bernabeu maybe it's sort of just not happening. But Marco Reus, I think, came on. He didn't start. Schürrle started and made a very big impact. Obviously, he's just coming back from injury. Aubameyang and then Reus scored 2 actually all 4 goals were very similar. They were sort of both getting in around the opposition's fullbacks and sort of really accurate low drill crosses for tap-ins. All 4 of those goals were the same. And Reus was obviously the equaliser in the 88th minute. And that puts them top.
Yeah.
Which I think is a pretty
I feel like that match savoured the taste buds for what will be kind of the group stage. The knockout stage of the Champions League, because there was so much on the line, and both teams were very much wanting to win it, and obviously 2 huge European sides kind of battling out with, something of, I guess, some significance, as we've discussed. Perhaps second and first place, not the be all or end all. But both teams definitely wanted to win it, and it was just great to watch.
It's worth saying in this, by the way, that while Dortmund are playing very well in the Champions League, they're not playing very well domestically.
No.
There's, I think it's 6th in the Bundesliga currently. What is that? That's 9 points off the top, which obviously Leipzig are currently holding. Bayern Munich in second place in that division. And defensively, Dortmund actually aren't looking that good in Germany. It's strange. I think they've kept 3 clean sheets in 13.
It's like Leicester.
And ironically, have Aubameyang, who's the top scorer in the division, with 15 goals.
Yeah.
So it's a very sort of polarising performance from them in the league.
The team with the best defensive record in Group F was actually Sporting Lisbon, who finished bottom.
Yeah, which kind of says a lot about the fact that Madrid and Dortmund are both in there, but neither have particularly good defensive records this year. That's going to be curious going forward, especially in the Champions League. Who's in the? I've just lost my bloody table there. Who goes into the Europa League? Oh, the Russian side, Warsaw. Polish side. Oh my word, they won't like that.
They won't like that. The Polish fans, Russian fans are cheering. With
I had Rostov on the brain. Sorry, I had Rostov. It's your
Nigel.
fault.
That sounds like quite clinical. That's Rostov on the brain.
That's like when Redknapp wanted Wes Morgan on the England plane. It's like he's got caps for Jamaica, Harry.
Can I just say on that? Have you heard about the fact that in the Gold Cup that Thierry Henry might be playing for Martinique? Because in the Gold Cup there's a rule that if you've not played for France,
the Cheltenham Gold Cup,
if you've not played for France in 5 years, you're eligible to play. It's like a nothing tournament, basically. That's what you need to do. It's for teams who aren't even actually part of FIFA.
Is it like the Checker Trade trophy? Is it like that?
We'll go. It doesn't have a playoff to get the bonus point, but that's the difference.
Lovely. Group G then, Leicester top the group. Leicester top the group, folks. Shall we clap Leicester for that? I think that's impressive.
Yeah,
well done, Leicester. That's an impressive performance you've done.
I'm doing it begrudgingly because
why? Why are you begrudging that?
Because they've got a +1 goal difference. They've scraped through.
Ignore the goal. We've already shown with analysing these group stages that there have been some skewed results.
As I said kind of a few weeks ago, which Leicester fans didn't like, I felt like if they finish top of this group and get relegated, it really means nothing.
I mean, again, awful scenes coming out of the mouth of Jack there. They finished top of the group then. Porto second with 11 points. FC Copenhagen with 9 and will go into the Europa League. And then you've got Club Brugge. Oh, Club Brugge.
Just the whipping boys.
2 goals scored, no draws, no wins. Just Club Brugge. It's a shame.
At least they scored. Zagreb didn't score in the next group we're going to talk about. So that's
do you want a fun story about Club Brugge?
Go on then.
Why not?
I was on the train with Club Brugge once when I went to Belgium. And they were all
the man himself.
No, with the team. I was in Bruges, ironically enough. I wasn't just sort of randomly on a train. And there was about probably 20 of them there, and they were singing rap in unison. I couldn't believe it. It was.
And that's why they finished bottom of the group. They're too busy focusing on their career.
But it wasn't like I've got to be honest, folks. This might surprise you, but I'm not big into my rap. It was quite jovial rap. It was quite jolly. Which I didn't realise rap could be so jolly, but the way in which they were doing it was they all were smiling as they were doing it. Yeah, I mean, for any other, what I first liked was the fact they were on the train. That was a joy. And then
have you booked into any football teams at service stations or anything, Keno? Have you got any stories?
If Keno hasn't, I've got another one.
I've got another one.
I was just trying to think of that. I don't think I have. Not a coach
in my first week in London when I moved down there after I graduated, I bumped into QPR and saw Charlie Austin at King's Cross Station.
Yeah, Jack was shortly arrested after that. And
did he sign your tits, Jack?
Oh, do me. Good grief.
I tried to propose that to him, but he declined politely. I didn't have a pen. That was a problem.
As we're doing this, I'm going to do another one as well.
I'm sure you could have made do with something else.
I was staying in a hotel. I think it might have been a Marriott once, because, upper class. And I was trying to be Keno for the weekend. And Swansea were staying there.
Brilliant.
But when Swansea were kind of in League One, maybe, or the Championship.
So Lee Trundle was there.
Lee Trundle.
Steady. It was when Roberto Martinez was manager.
Oh, okay. So they weren't far off the Premier League at that point.
Me and Roberto Martinez both went for the bacon handle thing in the morning. That was an awkward moment.
I like to believe you had a stare down with him.
No, but Leon Britton, very small. Smaller than you think.
Yeah,
smaller than you think.
Yeah.
Did you see go back to Swansea. Lee Trundle, did you see his penalty that went viral this week?
It was a lot. I'm glad I've got Swansea in just to talk about this. It's one of the most sort of joyous things to happen in world football this year.
It's just this is your yearly reminder that Lee Trundle still plays football, even if it is in the second tier of Wales.
I couldn't believe the amount of power he got on it from just sort of walking up to the ball.
It didn't look physically possible, but I was thinking about this. Obviously, it can't really be given as a stutter penalty, but the referee could see it as unsporting conduct and actually book him.
Yeah, he could.
Which and disallow the goal. I'm kind of glad he didn't. And if he had done that, I feel like he would have been booed a lot.
Enemy of football.
But I don't know if you saw. I tweeted out a video. It was Lee Trundle, but it was like from September this year where he scored a hat trick in under 3 minutes.
I've seen this. Yeah,
it's one of the greatest hat tricks you'll ever see. It's an incredible hat trick.
For those that don't know,
Henri S. Dink.
We should say, for those that don't remember Lee Trundle, which I'm sure is probably Keno and everyone else.
Or just don't know who he is.
I remember Lee Trundle.
Yeah, but probably quite vaguely because it was about 10 years ago now. Lee Trundle was he was the only player outside of a top division to have his own branding deal. That was like the big thing with Trundle. Because
he was like he is like the most YouTubeable footballer.
He was basically a mixture of Wayne Rooney and Paul Gascoigne without any desire to be good. So he was honestly one of the most technically gifted players the lower leagues ever seen, probably have ever seen, I dare say, but just had no sort of. Do you want to get fit, Lee, and be a Premier League player? Not really. I just like doing keep-ups in their half.
He quite liked, for people who play CS, they'll know what this is, but he quite likes smurfing in League One.
Yeah, it was like
below
he was
his
smurfing.
Level.
I'm just going to... Do you know what? We should dedicate this entire podcast to Lee Trundle. Champions League's great and everything, but I just want to see how many goals he scored in his career.
He got 78 in 150 games of Swansea. The thing is, he never really scored a lot. He just scored screamers, and every week on Soccer AM Showboat, he was on doing something.
Yeah, he was the kind of player that he enjoyed playing football, and that was it for him. He was earning a couple of grand a week, and that was his life. He didn't want to be a superstar, but if he applied himself, there was absolutely no doubt that he could have been.
He's currently playing for Llanelli Town in the second tier of Wales, where he scored 14 goals in 6 games.
I love that. I want to see more players do this. And
He's
just
40
go and play
as well.
for
Just to be clear, he's 40 playing in the second tier of Wales. Like, he's not.
You can get Trundle on Football Manager this year. You can get him on Football Manager.
Well, I signed him, if you can remember.
I do remember. And
for Charlton, he never played.
He's got two pace, but technical ability coming out of his arse. He's so good.
This show is going to be called an ode to Lee Trundle.
No, I just think Lee Trundle deserves the credit and the penalty.
If you don't know who he is, because either you're not from England, because in which case I wouldn't blame you for not knowing who he is. Just search him on YouTube and just watch away.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
A bit of a low-key national.
Anyway,
hero,
I don't know how we've got from Leicester's group in the Champions League.
We're not finished with Trundle. If you have heard of Trundle, you'll be smiling right now. If you haven't heard of him, Trundle was a great way to describe him. He would trundle up and down a football pitch. He wouldn't run, wouldn't sprint. He was trundling along, doing rainbow flicks and scoring magical goals.
I've just discovered a video on the Swansea official YouTube channel where they're interviewing him for his 40th birthday. Do you mind? It's 20 minutes long. Can I watch it now and come back for the end of the show?
Okay, that is a step too far, Jack, and you've now ruined the mystique of Lee Trundle. No, you can't.
I don't know. I'm watching a beautiful montage with piano music in the background as he enters Swansea for the first time.
Wonderful. Not the first person to do that, I'm sure. Leicester then, top of the group. 13 points. Porto in second. I mean, it's a massive achievement for Leicester. Poor league form this season, baffling league form this season, really. Finished top of the group. That makes the league form to me all the more surprising. Is that they've topped their Champions League group, but their league form is so poor.
They have as many points now in the Champions League as they do in the league.
That is part of the problem, in my opinion.
I'm not sure it is baffling, their league form. I think they've just reverted to the team that they were, and
they've won as many games though in 14 as they did in 6. They've won more actually in the Champions League.
Yeah, and I think that the sort of the motivation we've spoken about this before. I think the motivation is there in the Champions League. In terms of this game this week, obviously they lost 5-0 away at Porto. I think Ranieri made a big mistake in because obviously it didn't mean anything. It was another one that didn't really matter. But he played, I think Wes Morgan was the only player in the starting 11 who had played at the weekend in the Premier League and against Sunderland. And I think that was a big mistake because in the form that they're in, in this sort of weekly grind, and of course now they've got probably is it about 6 weeks without the Champions League or so? It's mid-January, isn't it, when it comes back? So they've got a little while now of just league form. I don't think being tonked 5-0 away at Porto was a good way for them to sort of begin this festive period. I think Ranieri, while it was noble what he did in playing players like Damari Gray, a few more of their fringe players.
I think you've got to look at it in two ways though. With this, I think you've got to realise he's playing them because this for a lot of these players, if they are the fringe players of Leicester, this might be their final chance. And a lot of these players were players that got them to the sort of the promised land last season. Look at Okazaki. Look at sort of Jeffrey Schlupp played as well. Damari Gray, who stays in there too. Lusky, he played too. I just think it was a bit of a go on guys, go and have a game. And also something that shouldn't be ignored there, is that he's given the players that are struggling at the moment the week off, which might be pivotal. Coming sort of their next, who is their next league game actually? That's if it's one they sort of have to win.
Question. It's Manchester City away.
Okay then. Well, maybe in
5 o'clock on a Saturday.
Retrospectively, I'm not sure it was the smartest decision.
I do just
think
they
have, however, got a game on Tuesday against Bournemouth. So
yeah, I mean, you could flip my argument on its head and say, as you say, Ben, that they've given those big players a rest ahead of the festive period. But I just think that their league form has been so bad, and I think confidence is pretty low because I think if you're part of that team that's just won the league, you're going to be a bit knocked in your confidence. Particularly Jamie Vardy being the best example of the tough season that they're having this time around. And I just think if they could have gone away to Porto, who are a big team, like I know they're not in the sort of top tier.
They guarantee that full strength Leicester would beat Porto.
No, but I think if they'd have gone there and they've really played well with their best team and maybe come away with a point or something, I think they could that may have been useful in sort of turning around their league form a little bit. But he went with the other thing, the other sort of option, and yeah, to sort of summarise on this group, it's fantastic for Leicester. I think they haven't really had one of those magical Champions League games yet because they didn't really have a big. I know Porto are a big team, but not a sort of a European giant they had in their group.
I think we want to see them play a Madrid or Bayern Munich now.
Yeah,
just because you want it for them and you want it for us because it'll be great to watch.
And I think when, sort of about maybe February, March time last year when we thought Leicester will actually be in the Champions League, that was the kind of, those are the ties that people immediately thought of. So we want to see one of those.
There'll be a team who finished second in the Champions League that will not want Leicester. And I think Paris Saint-Germain will be thinking, let's not have that. We do not want. They played each other actually pre-season, didn't they? But they will not be looking at Leicester thinking that'll be fun. They'll be, oh God, no! This is going to be embarrassing, isn't it? If we lose to Leicester. And then finally, let's just finish off the groups before we chat a little bit about the upcoming Premier League games, as well as a little bit of what happened last weekend. Juventus's group, boys, which has been sort of a bit predictable, I dare say. Is that fair? I mean, it went a little bit down.
For Zagreb, they would have been hoping for something slightly better than to lose every game and have a minus 15 goal difference without scoring a goal. It's
not great. So Juve topped the group with 14 points. Sevilla and Lyon kind of sort of in that order as well. Lyon into the Europa League. That's another good team, I think, in the Champions League, in the Europa League. I get it right, Ben. Tricky for anyone that has to play them. It says Zagreb. 6 games played, no wins, no draws, 6 losses, no goals scored, 15 conceded. I mean, was it worth it? Was it worth all the travelling? Probably not.
I think Juventus, just quickly on Juventus, I think their sort of prospects in this tournament, obviously they've been very successful in the last 2 or 3 years.
Are they a favourite, Keenan?
2 years ago. I think they still are. Their Serie A form has not been nearly as dominant as it has been in the last 4 or 5 years, and they've been dropping a lot more points and being run a bit closer by teams like Roma and Napoli, and whether that may sort of help them in a way in the Champions League, in the sense that they're not trying to maintain. I know they went on an incredible, I think it was a certain string of
lot of games
last year. Yeah, and so if maybe not trying to maintain a record like that, maybe taking the league a little bit less sort of seriously may actually help their Champions League form. But then again, they've got a pretty high bar to reach. So they were finalist 18 months ago. And was it semis this last year? So they've got a pretty high bar to meet. I think they're favourites. Yeah.
Interestingly, on that, Juve have lost games either side of a Champions League game. So when they've lost in the league, it's always been either side of a Champions League game to Inter and Milan and Genoa.
Which suggests as though they are taking it a little bit more seriously, because I think that is Juventus have dominated Italy. For the last 5 years, and that's under 2 managers, obviously Allegri and Conte, and I don't think either of them have got anything to prove domestically now. And so you couldn't really blame Allegri for who has been very successful in Italy, not so much out obviously around Europe, that would be a real way for him to put himself in that sort of top bracket of European managers. Maybe if he was considering a move later, would be to win a Champions League with Juventus.
Yeah,
quite an underrated manager, I think. I know he's at Juventus, but I feel like he doesn't get put in that sort of top bracket of sort of European managers. But he could do this year.
Yeah.
So,
on Sevilla, Jack, who've also gone through. Is this a mistake by them to go through?
I don't know. I feel like there's only so long that you can repeatedly win the Europa League before it's no longer impressive.
That's no longer impressive. That's my favourite bit. I like the idea that when you get a fifth time, everyone just turns around. No one's in the stadium at that point going, "Yeah, well done, Sevilla. We know we knew what your plan was all along."
It is amazing what they do.
Yeah. So now they've gone through though, which is
I don't think you can call it a mistake. It's a chance then to prove their mettle against some really big teams in Europe. Of course, they were in a group with, I guess you could say, Lyon and Juventus are kind of big sides, and they've proven themselves against both of those teams.
Yeah.
And now it's a chance for them to go into the group stage. And I actually think the fact they've done so well in the Europa League and they're quite familiar with, I guess, what a European night entails of knockout football can put them in quite good stead versus, say, a team like Leicester, who are going to be venturing a little bit into perhaps the unknown.
At time of recording as well. So I was just quickly keen. At time of recording, Sevilla are third in La Liga behind Real Madrid and Barcelona.
I was going to say their league form is, I think that maybe not, definitely last year. I'm not sure about the year before. They've won the Europa League. Their league form was much more patchy, and I think they did sort of really focus on that. Obviously, they're playing well across the board at the moment, and so they could also be. I mean, I mentioned who was it that we Napoli initially as a potential banana skin dark horse team. Sevilla are another one who could really cause a bit of an upset.
Yeah, both teams have got similar league form, so that's quite a good comparison, I would say. So that wraps up the Champions League group stages. Favourites at this stage, gentlemen? Anyone you think's most likely to win?
Certain pick. I would say Borussia Dortmund.
Wow, big talk. I appreciate it. I think any of the Spanish teams look particularly dominant. I think it'd be foolish to write off Atletico Madrid, but I do think at some point Barcelona's trio will be on top of that tree. And
to prove I'm not a completely terrible person, I'll say Leicester.
I mean, okay. Otherwise, it'd be a failure. No one's going for Arsenal. No.
Who do we think out of the remaining English teams is going to go first? Do we think City and Arsenal are kind of looking to get Arsenal on the first knockout round?
Well, I mean, it's so difficult to say ahead of the draw. Like we can't really put it. I think let's wait and see what happens with the draw, and then I think we can genuinely sort of.
So when Arsenal get Bayern, then we can just say City.
Yeah, I hope it's Leicester. I genuinely hope Leicester get to like the semi-finals. I just think it'd be.
They win it.
I just think it'd be fantastic. Well, yes, of course, but I think the semi-final performance would be something to admire. I want to see Leicester play a big side and beat them playing the Leicester way. That would be fantastic. I think PSG, give them PSG, because I think it's possible against PSG. Right then, that is our Champions League roundup. An extended Champions League roundup, I would say, boys. That's nearly 50 minutes we've gone there.
We should probably blitz through the Premier League games, I feel.
Well, yes, we'll treat the Premier League as more of sort of a look ahead with touching back on last week, as opposed to going through everything that you've seen last weekend. And we'll do that after this short break.
What is going on, listeners? Jack here, and we interrupt our usual podcast proceedings to let you guys know about a brand new sponsor here at ForTheFans, Classic Football Shirts. Classic Football Shirts offers a range of classic, rare, retro, vintage football shirts from throughout history and throughout the world of football. Check out their website. You can find it via a link in the description if you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching on iTunes or elsewhere, you can find it at ForTheFans on Twitter, and it's our pinned tweet. Hopefully you guys like the products they have on offer at Classic Football Shirts, and of course they do make ideal Christmas presents in the run-up to the holiday season.
Okay, folks, welcome back. Jack's on his third cider as we talk about the Premier League action. Enjoying it, Jack?
We found out that during the break.
Yeah, having a good time, Jack?
I'm loving it.
Loving it, of course he is. Expect some Charlie Austin chat, whether we like it or not, in a moment. Let's kick things off then. It was a 7-goal thriller. I guess we'll call it a thriller. It was Bournemouth 4.
A thriller for neutrals.
Yeah, it was Bournemouth 4, Liverpool 3. It was all done at 3-1. It was finished.
There was only 4 goals. It finished 3-1. I worked out after 75 minutes. I was done. I went and made my tea because game over.
I too thought when Chan scored that excellent goal, I thought curtains.
Yes, and then Liverpool decided, let's take Mane off. I think had a knock, and that was sort of the noise or the thing that Bournemouth need to see to inspire them to decide that we can attack now because we're literally not going to be threatened as much. And so they did. But it was, I mean, I would like to say from a neutral perspective, it was a great game. Quite difficult to do as a Liverpool fan. It was just watching Liverpool just, what's the word when
capitulate.
You just capitulate's a great word. We just capitulated. Our midfield decided that tracking back wasn't as important. Our defenders decided that tackling not a necessity, and Karius thought holding the ball didn't matter so much. And that was that. I should say a lot of criticism came Karius' way. I don't think that was necessarily fair. 3 of the goals, in my opinion, aren't really his fault. The final one, I'm sure he expects to hold on to, but a cold Sunday afternoon on the south coast, when a ball is powered into him, I think not many keepers would have held it, but he's expecting to hold it, and that is a big issue.
I think it's safe to say that by that point, yes, it was an error, but the seeds of that loss had already been sown by the rest of the team.
It was a feeling as a Liverpool fan that I'm very familiar with, where it is an inevitable sort of disappointment, which was coming. I thought the disappointment was going to be a draw, but no, at that point, you already feel like you've lost. So
we know why this happened. It's because you talked ill of Steve Cook last week. He said he was ugly and old or whatever it was, and then he gets a goal.
I don't think I said that, did I?
No, I think that was me.
Okay, right.
Well, I'm sorry, guys.
And then he gets the shot that Karius spills.
Right, next time.
That was the finish, to be fair. The Steve Cook goal off the corner was the finish of a season number 9. It was an amazing touch.
Yeah. It was like Lee Trundle in his prime, I dare say. But no, I a lot of credit needs to go to Mr. Fraser, who came on, got won his side a penalty, and then scored as well, and was absolutely loving it.
And assisted. He won a penalty, scored and assisted
he did a bit of
in about
everything.
20 minutes.
His influence really changed the game. He gave Bournemouth a new energy. In the first half, Bournemouth, I thought, looked pretty poor, actually. I think a lot of eyes were on Jack Wilshere for this sort of game, and he didn't really do anything.
It's the first ever game as a professional he's been involved in where he's beaten Liverpool.
Wow. Okay. Well, credit to Jack Wilshere. But I will say, I stand by the fact I don't think he had a particularly good game. I don't think Bournemouth winning was.
I think it was tough. Yeah, it was tough for him in the first half because I think Liverpool were really good first half.
It's tough for most midfielders against Liverpool's rhythm like that, but
exactly.
I don't know. I guess so. He's one of the standout players of Bournemouth. I expected a little bit more. Origi's goal was quite nice in the first half. Let's talk about
a few.
Let's talk about the good bits. The good bits, yeah. Mane gets the first, but because I don't know, it's just poor defending, and then Origi. I don't really know what Boric is doing. He's just like, I'll come out. Well, oh God, he's fast.
To be fair to Boric, right? You see keepers do that, and even though they don't actually get the ball and the play goes around them, they do it to sort of force the player out wide.
Yeah.
And it was after Origi went round Boric, he had a man tracking back on the line, another one on the sort of the edge of the 6-yard box. It was a very tough finish.
Yeah.
Like it's a sort of a 2 in 10 chance that you can hit it with that pace.
Aguero did it against Pepe Reina for City against Liverpool a few years ago. Obviously, when Reina was at Liverpool, he did a very similar thing from a very similar angle. Good finish.
The composure and ability to sort of confidence as well to hit it with that power and conviction at that angle on the run. Was the combination of all those things was really impressive. Yeah, it was a great goal.
So, and in something really, we won't focus on this too much. It was a great win for Bournemouth. And what I will touch upon is Mr. Klopp was very sort of magnanimous in defeat. Essentially said, we gave Bournemouth the opportunity to win, and they took the opportunity, and will sort of fight back next week, which, I mean, as a fan of Liverpool, that's bloody nice to hear. That not only does he give the other team the credit, he accepts that we weren't good enough and says it'll be better next week. And there's not really much more I want to hear as a fan.
One thing, obviously, Joel Matip didn't play.
Yeah, massive miss. Massive miss.
Well, is he injured or is scheduled?
He'll be back next week, but he is a bigger miss than Coutinho, without doubt, as sort of proven this weekend. Yeah, we can score goals, not a problem. It's those defensive decisions in key areas that we are abysmal at when he's not there, and that's something he's brought this season. I think actually because he was a free transfer, because there wasn't much made of him, he's kind of gone under the radar. I think me and Jack have spoke about him in the last few weeks and said how much we love him. There's just
the best signing of the window. I think ahead of Mane.
There's just a comfort feeling when he's there that you think, do you know what? He'll deal with this, and it won't be a problem, and it'll make it look easy. And we've not had Liverpool defenders do that very often in the last sort of 10 years. So it's nice to see.
I
Big
will
loss,
say,
but we'll be back.
the thing, I don't call it a highlight of the game because I don't really want to remember this game.
Was
But
it Ake's
goal line
goal?
technology actually made a difference in this game.
It was used a couple of times over the weekend.
Millimeters away from Liverpool going 4-3 up from a cross that almost went in, which the keeper nearly took over the line.
Yeah.
I mean, Jonathan Pearce now understands what's happening, which is a fortunate
Those
situation.
bloody cameras. Moving forward then, Liverpool dropped down to third in the league, wins for Arsenal and Chelsea.
Big result for Bournemouth.
A massive result for Bournemouth, puts them into the top half for the first time this season, I think.
Yeah.
18 points, and I think we said at the beginning of the season that unless they start quite well, then they could be in a bit of a dogfight. But actually, 14 games in, it's too early to say they're safe, but they're in a very healthy position, I would say.
Just to finish this off and sort of look forward, one potential dark spot on the horizon for Bournemouth is, it sort of comes out of a positive in a way. I thought Wilson was very good. Callum Wilson was very good against Liverpool again. He got his goal and it was a penalty. He also led the line in the game that they lost at Arsenal pretty well at the Emirates, and his form's been pretty decent. I just think his all-round play's been good for them this season as well. Obviously, he's had a good run.
Are you worried that West Ham will bid?
Well, that's the rumour at the moment, that West Ham, who are desperately in need of goals and a sort of a central number 9 who doesn't get injured all the time, they are in need of that player, and 20 million I think is the figure being bandied around. I mean, that's quite high for a player who's only just started in the top flight, but he's been good for them, and it would be a loss come January if a bigger team makes a move for him.
Yeah, fair assessment. Let's move on then to what was probably, for lots of reasons actually, was probably still, despite a 4-3, probably still game of the weekend. Manchester City 1, Chelsea 3. I mean, shall we start off with the Kevin De Bruyne miss? I mean, it's arguably the moment that swings the game. I'm not sure, but yeah, it was pretty bad. A goal he should definitely be taking. And it swung the time, didn't it? It was 1-0 City at that point. He misses that, and all of a sudden, was it 1-1 or 1-0? Okay.
It was 1-0. It would have been 2-0 to City if he'd have put that in. I think it's one of those that this game actually was one where, in hindsight, looking at the result and how Chelsea played, particularly in the last sort of half an hour of the game, you think that is an incredible performance, a title-winning performance, you could say, and it definitely looked like that. But it could have been so different, and we wouldn't have been talking about this at all if I thought if De Bruyne had put that chance away, because the City would have gone 2-0 up. They'd looked. I know the goal in the first half was an own goal from Cahill, but City had looked pretty dangerous for the first hour, because I think De Bruyne missed about 58 minutes. For that first hour, they looked pretty okay. They were sort of matching Chelsea, created a lot of chances. It was quite interesting actually to see City in the first half go really sort of cross heavy, like they were putting balls into the box all the time. I think that was a feature of Guardiola's Bayern actually, which I think was not really spoken about that much. They get a lot of crosses in.
Well, their goal came from Cahill, obviously.
Exactly, yeah.
Their goal came from that. I will say on that I don't think Gary Cahill. I don't think Manchester City became any worse after that De Bruyne miss, but I think it gave Chelsea the idea of, we should probably wake up now and play. Exactly. And so all of a sudden they were rolling. Costa with a lovely goal, I must say. The ball from Fabregas is exquisite. The touch from Costa, the finish is just as good.
My favourite goal of the weekend, that was actually. It was just it's almost the inevitability once he brought it down and cut inside the man. You knew in a player in the form that he's in. It's just so clinical.
It's his perfect. It's in my view, it's his perfect goal. Gets to embarrass a defender and score a nice goal at the same time.
Combination of strength and technique.
I will say this game, City was so good in the first half, and I think if you were to just purely look at the stats, you'd see it as a bit of a smash and grab in some ways. But in truth, Chelsea was so good. I thought Diego Costa possibly gave the best performance of a lone striker I've seen in the Premier League this year. Just the work he put in, his ability to hold up the second play.
Half, I think.
Oh, for sure. But even in the first half, I mean, he was feeding off scraps, but he was still giving the City team something to worry about.
When he's up for it, he's a nightmare, isn't he? He sets up the goal for Willian, of course, which is, underratedly brilliant finish.
I thought the keeper was a little bit odd, actually.
Yeah,
I think he lost track of where his goal was.
Yeah, regardless, still a nice finish. And then obviously Hazard scores on the 90, and it's kind of, at that point, City are pushing, Hazard breaks and scores.
It's one of those that makes the result look worse than it, more in Chelsea's favour than it was. I think one other performance that I would highlight was Kante, who I think it was Gary Neville who was commentating for Sky, mentioned in the sort of after about half an hour just the brilliance of what he does. Yeah. And just the amount of times that he does it in a game and saves chances, potential goals. There are a number of times where he sort of basically did the centre half's work, who sort of covered up for David Luiz's sort of defensive lack of concentration. He's been pretty good, but there was a certain time in this game where I think Kante sort of tracked back into the Chelsea box. This was in the first half. Yeah. Put in a challenge. There was a penalty appeal, but it was an inch perfect challenge, and he just does so much work. It was one of the best defensive. Jack said, Costa in the second half was the sort of the archetypal lone striker. It was one of the best performances from a defensive midfielder I've seen in a long time, and Kante is just
since Kante at Leicester, really, since he was doing well last year.
But I think it's a bit of an it's almost become a cliche now. But I think Leicester, like, they unearthed Kante. He's now playing for France regularly. He's back at the top of the Premier League. Like, this is a potential world-class defensive midfielder that has sort of come out of nowhere. Incredible signing by Leicester, and I think he was just so good for them in that year. I think it will still be another year or two until maybe we look back on that season and just realise how good he was for that team.
What I will say is, and it's something we spoke about not particularly recently, actually, a while ago, is that I don't know if you guys said it as well. I'm pretty sure I said this, though, that I think Kante will always work better next to a player that's slightly more creative and not trying to almost do his job as well as him. So, no Matic, of course, and Fabregas played. And we kind of questioned, is Fabregas right for this Conte team? And I remember saying at the time that he would sort of fit that Paulo role in this Chelsea side. And I think Fabregas is adopting that now.
Yeah, it looked quite a risk at first, actually, because everyone knew that Matic wouldn't play. And when the team news came out and Fabregas was on his own in that midfield too with Kante. But if you look at it, Conte's playing a slightly different system at Chelsea in the sense that he doesn't have the three in midfield, but it was almost a Leicester type system. Like, Fabregas was Drinkwater, and Kante was playing in that exact same role, and he was everywhere. And even a player like Fabregas, who has a bit of a reputation for not always tracking back and doing his sort of defensive duties as a midfielder, particularly when he's playing in that holding role.
Chelsea are benefiting massively.
He didn't need to do it.
Yeah, Chelsea are benefiting massively from the form of David Luiz as well as the fact Victor Moses and Alonso on the left they know exactly what they're doing. Those three players have got almost defined roles.
Are we surprised with David Luiz? Because I feel like I feel like when he first came back, there was a little bit of head scratching as to kind of where's he going to fit into this?
There's a lot of head scratching.
I think the reason for that, and he's proven everyone wrong because he's playing fantastically, but you would have never ever put David Luiz in that Juventus back three. You would never have thought he would fit into this. But Conte has got him in and he plays him in a slightly different way. Gives him actually a little bit more freedom to have the ball. Is one of the big things, and is playing. He's openly one of Chelsea's best players this season.
Just made his ability to do that is sort of allowed by the fact that Kante can just clean up everything.
It gives everyone a bit more time as well. Forward. Both of those players give other players time, and that is what that Chelsea system needs currently. On David Luiz, he gets destroyed by Sergio Aguero. I have got some very strong opinions on this tackle, but we'll come to you, Jack, for red card analysis. There were two in the game. Sergio Aguero with the first. What did you make of the particularly horrendous tackle?
I mean, it's just Aguero has it in his locker. He actually did a very similar one, I believe, in the FA Cup on.
He stamped
Luiz.
on him
on David Luiz.
Yeah, so it's not exactly a new situation. There's obviously perhaps a little bit of history there. It's one of those fouls where, in a way, if a striker gets frustrated in a game and just like a silly little foul, I kind of shrug my shoulders and go, fair enough. I understand why you're frustrated. But this is not just a case of he's a little bit frustrated and he just has, a little bit of a tap out on someone. He has gone through David Luiz at it was reckless, it was high, it's dangerous. And,
at some velocity.
And he's already got sent off this year, and he's going to serve a 4-game punishment. And honestly, I love David. I was going to say I love David Luiz. I really rate Sergio Aguero, and I like him as a footballer. But he has these kind of games, and yes, he's in my fantasy football team. But I think he needs a longer ban than just the 4 matches because it's just that bad.
I agree with that. People have been like going, well, Aguero's got a 4-game ban. Yeah, because he's already had a red card this year. So that's what happens. And the next time he gets a red card, it's a 5-game ban. That literally is just the system that is employed by the Premier League.
I was going to preface by saying, it's funny that his last sort of the challenge that people remember was also on David Luiz. I'm not sure if
it's the Argentine-Brazilian thing, Callum.
Yeah, there was also
the
incident. Yeah, there was also the incident at the beginning of the game as well, where City wanted Luiz off, and
I think he was lucky actually on that incident.
There was that incident which I think pissed Aguero off.
Do you think he was? Do you think David Luiz was lucky? I thought it was a bit of nothing, and I think Aguero was sort of looking for it.
I think if he'd have blown for a foul, it would have been a yellow. I don't think it was a red.
I think it was a foul.
Wasn't close enough in on goal for me for it to be maybe a red. I don't know. I think it is a bit of a foul, but it's also a bit of Aguero thinking, I'm not going to bother to run round. I'm going to run in, and we'll see if I'm giving it. And he wasn't.
I mean, it's a good job that the Besiktas referee wasn't watching us. It would have been a foul.
Yeah, it would have been. I think some referees would have given it. I've no doubt about it.
Well, the thing is, the ref put the whistle to his lips and then didn't blow. And I think actually the two things that have played into that, the fact that it's at City's ground and it's early on in the game. Otherwise, I think he gives it.
Don't you feel like referees do that all the time, though, and they're sort of waiting for the word from their fourth official or their assistant? The thing is,
though, it's on the opposite side to the assistant, so it's in his quarter of the pitch to cover. It's his call at the end of the day, and he's got the best angle for it. So I feel like it's a bit of a cop-out that he puts the whistle in his mouth, looks over to his official, who stood 60 yards away on the other side of the pitch, and expected him to be able to see it.
But from where that lino stood, he can see the what would be I can't think of the phrase. He would see the diameter that he would. That's the wrong word completely. He could basically see whether Aguero has chosen to run into him or run round him, and he's probably made the judgment of he's run into him.
I don't think that's not the linesman's call. Not from the angle. Of course
it is. He's officiating the game. Of course it is.
No, but but it's in the referee's quarter of the pitch.
But Jack, you've got to realise, Jack, that is how you're taught. That is how you're taught to become a referee. But that is not how it's done.
The
in the Premier League.
linesman cannot make that call from where he is. I don't know how you expect to see the direction. Human eyes cannot perceive depth very well. He cannot see the two angles that the players are running at from the side of the pitch he's on. That's nonsense.
But he's there.
The linesman behind him probably has a better view.
Of course he can see it. I think he's looked at that official and he said, look, as he blocked him off, and that's essentially the call he's made. As he blocked him off, or as he run into him. And the line on that far side has probably said, it looks like he's run into him.
I mean, I just disagree with that. I don't think that's the linesman's call to make at all.
What? I'm not sure. I'm not sure it was, but I think he used.
You look for guidance. If he's not sure, he can't give it. If he's not sure, that is like something a referee can't do. He can't.
Yeah, but you're saying that the linesman should be able to read that. Perceiving depth is very, very difficult.
Well, it might be difficult, but he's paid to do that job as a linesman. What if there's a decision on the far side of the pitch? He still has to give it if it's offside or not.
But that's different. He's looking across a completely different plane there.
Well, it's the same plane.
It's not, because he's not looking at whether they're moving into each other. He's looking from end of the pitch to other end of the pitch off sides. This determination of is he running inside or outside is actually relative to the two sidelines of the pitch, and it's not an angle that can easily be perceived from where he stood on the sideline.
I agree it's not easily perceived, but it's still the job of the official to give that decision either way.
Guys.
Callum?
It's a good chat.
I feel like the majority of people are going to disagree with you, but...
Okay. Well, I think Jack's had a lot to drink, so we'll move on. Okay. I don't necessarily. I don't think. I mean, you might disagree, but I think the idea that the official should have no say over that decision whatsoever.
I'm not saying that, but the referee shouldn't be looking over to him, expecting the lino to be the one to call that yes or no.
Well, maybe
the ref's position. He's like behind the players. He can see the angles they're running at.
Like, if it's clear, it clearly wasn't clear to the referee, so he had to say, right, it was clearly not clear to the referee, so he has to look across to his official and say, how have you seen it? And if he just goes, it looks as if he's run into him, then the referee's like, okay, then we're not going to give it. That to me is what's happened.
I don't think the linesman in that position is in any position whatsoever to make that decision. I actually think the linesman on the other side of the pitch probably has a better view at the direction in which the two players are running. But anyway, we're going round in circles here. The bottom line is it wasn't given. I think
we're going round in circles.
A majority of people would disagree with that decision and say that it probably was a foul, if only a yellow card.
Okay, Fernandinho and Fabregas. Just to go completely off it.
You two are resembling Fernandinho.
We are. I feel like I've been pushed
into
over.
the ForTheFans.
Well, I feel like I've gone over the barrier, Jack. At this point, I feel like I've gone over the barrier. Although I give you a little slap beforehand.
Jack's definitely. Yeah, you gave Jack the little slap.
Yeah.
Jack retaliated, and you are now in the fans.
Yeah,
bench.
Jack gets Christmas off, but at least I get to play. I don't know what goes on.
I'm not on next week, Shab. Been banned.
I think the Fabregas thing it's quite smart from Fabregas.
He's underrated for that. Isn't he?
A little slap's never going to be like really punished, but he knows that if Fernandinho grabs his throat and pushes it backwards, that could well result in a decision going against him, and it has done. He's going to miss 3 games, which for City is a bit of a big deal. They're lucky, really, that Torre's coming into a little bit of form, so we'll probably come in and play in a similar role potentially. Overall, then, when you look at this game, Chelsea 3, City 1, Chelsea remain top of the table, and City, I mean, me and Jack called City to win the league. It doesn't look as if that is that possible right now. It's only 4 points, but Chelsea, overall, to me, look like the best team in the league right now, Keno. Well done, you.
Yep, I'll be reminding everyone about it until
I'm
May.
still believing in Leicester. I'm going to come back.
Well, this is strange. You've changed your tune. Last season it was, I don't think they'll win it, and now you think they've got a chance. All right, I like it.
I feel like at least there's some dignity in saying Leicester are going to win the league and they don't.
Let's very quickly touch on Arsenal. 5-1 winners. Sanchez is good, isn't he? That's what we'll talk about. Sanchez is bloody good.
Why the hell has he not been playing striker any sooner? Why is it... He's been...
Giroud, mate. Giroud's good.
No, I feel like if you're Wenger, there's a big question to ask of... You've been looking for a centre forward for years, and you've had one in your team the entire time that you've never thought to try there.
To be fair, I don't think you can blame Wenger for this because Alexis has played almost at every club he's been at in that sort of wide forward role. And if anything, maybe we should be giving Wenger a bit of credit for being the first manager to play him there.
I don't. When you consider the clubs that Sanchez has been at and the reason he's been forced out wide, when you consider Wenger's been adamant to play Theo Walcott down the middle at times and give him a go, I don't know why you haven't tried Sanchez there. Even if it's just in training and gone, actually, he's quite good there.
My favourite thing about this game was the face of the ball boy. From the certain camera angle after Sanchez's third goal, which was a beautiful little dink over the keeper, sat him down, then lifted it over. The ball boy looked astonished; he couldn't believe it.
Well, I love that though. That for me, that's a nice part of football. Yeah. I think I like that.
Yeah. Inspired.
People were furious though. The ball boys at West Ham were getting a selfie with Alexis Sanchez after the game. I think if you are genuinely annoyed about that, and that is ruining your afternoon, which it clearly did to some people on Twitter. Get out more. They're 12 years old, and Alexis Sanchez is on the pitch next to them. What do you want them to do? Just act as if he's the enemy? Nah, not for my money. They're kids. Let them be kids.
Lots of goals from Arsenal again.
Yeah, 5-1 winners. I mean, West Ham are in trouble. Bilic looks like a beaten man. So,
well, the thing is, Sky Sports sources, put that in commas, they've said that his job isn't actually at risk at the moment and he's given time. It
bloody should be. I'll say that much. 12 points from 14 games for a side like West Ham ain't good enough. I think his position should be considered. Who have they got coming up this weekend as well? Is it Liverpool?
Yeah, they have a tough game, and then over Christmas the fixtures sort of lighten up a little bit, and that could be a crucial. That could be. The jury's out in those 3 games.
They're away at Anfield, and then on the Wednesday play Burnley at home, and that is a key game right there. If they don't win that,
I mean, really, the rest of their December run of Burnley, Hull, Swansea, Leicester, at the start of the season, they're all games that Leicester would expect to probably take 10 points from. Is that fair?
If after the next 4 games, if after the next 4 games they're still in 16th, 17th, I think Bilic's position has got to be looked at, and Sam Allardyce is willing. Actually, I don't know if he's or not. Probably isn't after what happened last time. Shall we leave the rest of the Premier League games? Do you mind, boys?
I think so. There was quite a lot to cover. Obviously, it's happened a few games ago now. There is a kind of a double bumper week of football now, isn't there? So I imagine that we're going to do an episode on Sunday/Monday this week.
Yeah, we're going to do. The plan is at this stage, listeners. Let's be transparent. We're going to record on Sunday night, put the show up Sunday night, so you can listen to it on the Monday, and then after the Wednesday fixtures on the Thursday, do another show as well. So 2 shows for the. You can say it's Christmas.
Yeah, we're getting into that festive period where all the games start to come at funny times, so we'll try and cover them as they come.
I think most people understand that over Christmas there might not be a podcast, however.
However, 2 this week. 2 in a week. So what more could you want?
That's our gift.
That's our gift to you.
Now,
the almost award-winning For the Fan show.
Last week, we asked kind of viewers on YouTube to ask questions, if they had any. Now, I'm going to be honest, we got limited ones, but we did get one that I feel like we should talk about because there weren't many others, and that is, do we think there'll be any huge January signings, and who do you think will make them / needs them? Is there the obvious answer for needing them is United, but that doesn't seem to be solving their problems.
I don't know if throwing more players into Manchester United will make them better.
West Brom have scored more goals than them now this season.
That is a problem. I think the teams that are most likely to make moves are these teams that have got problems with relegation. I think Leicester might strengthen. I think that's something no one's really talking about, but they did a little bit in the summer, bringing in players like Slimani. But I think that's an option for Leicester.
Well, they've not won in their last 5 league games. They've only won 2 of their last 10.
Well, Leicester are going to have money. That's the big thing for me. Leicester are going to have money to spend, I think, more so than maybe West Ham will. And that could be the difference. Aside from that, Palace might go in for someone. I don't have names. And I don't know. The big one for me is if Guardiola wants someone that he doesn't have right now. I don't know. That could be a very interesting proposition for Pep Guardiola.
Central defender, possibly.
Yeah. Apparently, Koeman wants a few at Everton as well. Wants a few players in. That's the talk.
It'll be a big January.
Yeah, I think this could be. I think it'll start off quite quiet, and then teams will think, do you know what? We need this kind of player. I don't. Go on.
West Brom might be the surprise spenders. I know that sounds mad. They're in 7th at the moment. They spent literally nothing in the summer.
Yeah. They're a debt-free club as well. West Brom, debt-free club. I don't think that we will see anything from Chelsea, Arsenal, Liverpool. Honestly, I think all 3 managers are probably pretty content. It might be injury dependent.
Liverpool going to sign Messi.
Well, apparently Sacco might leave, so it might open the door for a centre-back, but Joe Gomez is back again and back around the squad.
I'm a little bit sad about the whole Sacco saga, but that's something for another day.
It is. Right, should we wrap things up there, gentlemen? It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, let's.
Okay, if you want to find us on social media, you can do Twitter @ForTheFansShow, YouTube.com/ForTheFansShow, and ForTheFansShow.com for all the available links. Of course, if you're listening on iTunes, do rate the podcast over there, and if you've watched on YouTube, do leave a like. Leave your thoughts on the things we've discussed today as well. Bit of a bumper show this week, gentlemen, about an hour and 15, or whatever it is, 75-minute show. Wow, my word. Thank you, Jack, for joining me. Pleasure.
No worries.
Well, I wasn't sure it was you because I'm quite far away. I didn't know if you were coming at me in conversation or you were going to let me go to Kino first. References. And Kino, but he's gone silent, listeners. He's angry.
Yeah,
Callum, pleasure.
I don't understand the reference, actually.
It's a reference to David Luiz and the assistant when he, it wasn't a free kick.
Oh, I found a clip of it and it's made me more adamant in my opinion.
Okay, we'll talk about it after the show. Kino, pleasure.
Yeah, as always, Ben, go and check out, you'll have heard a message in the middle of the show, go and check out Classic Football Shirts.
Yes, there are some, I look at that website sort of periodically. You know how girls just look at sort of Next and things like this?
I've never been like that, but with Classic Football Shirts, I'm looking at all the Japanese kits, actually.
That's what I started doing.
That's time to end. Jack's going to be getting a circa Bristol City kit with Charlie Austin on the back. Did he play for Bristol City? I think he did.
No, Pool kit.
Yeah, pool kit. Do they have pool kits on there?
Is there any Pool Town kit?
I don't know. That is going to bring us to the end of this week's show then. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you again on the Sunday/Monday day. Have a good Christmas. Goodbye. It's too early for that. I shouldn't have done it.
Too late.
It's a sculpture of a gold Benji. It's perfection.
Kino, I think you're going to have to be calling for an oxygen mask over here, my friend.